Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Warrenville Public Safety and Legislative Committee of the Whole regular meeting. It's Monday, June 13th, 2016. I would like to have a roll call, please.
Alderman Ashour.
Here.
Alderman Berry.
Here.
Alderman Bevere is excused this evening. Alderman Davalos.
Here.
Alderman Goodman.
Here.
Alderman Hoffman.
Here.
Alderman Widener.
Here.
Alderman Wilson.
Here.
And Mayor Brummel is also excused this evening. We let him take a day off occasionally. I would like you to please stand, if you are able, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now's our time for citizens' comments. I have no one signed up, but if you'd like to make a comment at the time of the item that is up during the business of the meeting, please raise your hand or let me know, and you can make a comment at that time. Official and staff comments. Chief, as a department acknowledgement.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to ask Officer Alexander Snap if he could please join me up here at the podium. And this is one of the things that I probably enjoy doing the most, is recognizing an officer for outstanding performance and presenting an award to him. And we will be doing that tonight to Officer Alexander Snap, who is on my left. This will be a life-saving award. As you can see, it'll be his second. He's already a recipient of a life-saving award. But in this particular incident on May 22nd, 2016, at about 12:30 in the morning, Officer Snap was assigned to work a roadside safety check with the Illinois State Police on Route 59. The purpose of this check was to look for the operability of vehicles to make sure that they are compliant with safety laws within the state of Illinois, also for occupant restraint laws, distracted driving laws, and people that potentially may be driving under the influence. When we do these roadside safety checks, systematically a random number of cars, like the every third or every fourth car, will be funneled in for an inspection. When one of these cars came through the inspection lane, Officer Snap, who was working with the state police, noticed that the front seat passenger, who was a young male, appeared to be unconscious in the front seat of the vehicle, and they could not raise him. He went over to assess the individual's condition, and relying on his training and experience, he formed an opinion that this person was suffering from an opiate overdose. At that point, he administered Narcan, at which point the person was revived. Paramedics were summoned. He was transported to the hospital, and he made a full recovery. Additionally, it was very fortunate for this individual that the Warrenville police were there, as the Illinois State Police do not have Narcan issued to them. So, Alexander Snap, in recognition of your heroic actions exhibited on May 21st, 2016, that resulted in the saving of a human life, consistent in the highest traditions and standards of the Warrenville Police Department and the police service, it is my privilege to present to you this life-saving award. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Yeah, here we go.
Chief, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. And congratulations to Officer Snap. I guess this is getting to be a regular thing with you. So but that's a very good thing to do. So congratulations again. Any other, the mayor's not here. Clerk, any comments?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. The mayor kindly let me write a proclamation
for our pastor, Wendy West, at Trinity Lutheran Church. Yesterday was her last day. She retired after 12 years. And so I just wanted to let you know that one of her whereases, and I kept it to 6. I didn't want to break the mayor's record, but one of her whereases is she married 66 couples. She baptized 66 babies, married 33 couples, and performed 32 funerals in 12 years. I think we wore her out, but she, after 12 years, decided that it was time to retire, and maybe she'll do part-time pastor work someplace. But we had a great party for her yesterday, and the weather was awesome. Patrick was there, and we had 150 people come and say goodbye to her. So I wanted to thank the mayor and the council for that proclamation.
Great. Staff, or the alderman, excuse me. Any comments? None? Okay. City administrator?
I don't have anything to add tonight, thank you.
All right, now on to the business of the meeting. Number 1, consideration to adopt resolution between the City of Warrenville and the DuPage Digital Justice Information Center, the RMS. Chief Toronto.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a slide presentation, and this was presented by DuPage County ETSB, which is the Emergency Telephone Safety Board, that I'll be sharing with you tonight, and be happy to answer any of your questions regarding this particular item. For approximately 3 years, the County of DuPage, excuse me, has been working with the Emergency Telephone Safety Board to replace our current CAD, which is a computer-aided dispatch 911 system, and also our records management system. Currently, the CAD system, when you call 911 and a ticket is generated, does not communicate with the RMS system, so therefore certain data cannot be gathered except if it's done through a hand search. It was decided that the RMS system, as well as CAD, had reached its life cycle. There are 2 computers that store this information. Both of them are out at DuPage County. So based on that, a work group had formed with consisted of county officials, members of the DuPage County Chiefs Association, the ETSB, DUCOM, and other municipalities that would be participating, including Naperville and Addison Central Dispatch, which is referred to as ACDC, in order to put this through. We just received the letter last week, which was on the 27th of May, indicating that this total project, which will be a $12 million project, a little over $12 million, will be implemented. The first phase, which will be the CAD and the RMS replacement. They are looking for a letter of intent from participating agencies, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. But the total proposed cost for participation by the city in this project would be $244,000, $244,079.42, which would be spread out over a period of 8 years. Currently, we have an annual RMS fee, Records Management Systems fee, of approximately $5,400–$5,500, and I'll show you what the cost breakdown will be over the period of 8 years. So it's a 2-phase project, as I indicated. First of all, the first phase is the computer-aided dispatch and the records management system, which will be a new purchase. Phase 2 will be integration with existing circuit clerk, state's attorney, crime lab, jail software, and other legacy systems. Now, the computer-aided dispatch system and the records management system, it's an aging system that I said had reached the end of its life cycle. It needed replacement. 36 municipalities currently participate in DUCOM, but this is going to be county-wide. So the Sheriff's Department will be working with this, as will the Naperville Police Department, which is a freestanding PSAP or Public Safety Answering Point, as well as Addison Central Dispatch, which includes Addison, Bloomingdale, I believe Itasca, Wooddale, and Bensonville. and DUCOM, which covers basically everything else within the county. Now, this will have better interface with the other legacy agencies, as well as other police departments, and also the jail and the crime lab and what have you. Now, why this is very, very important, and people have asked this, we arrest an individual, we generate a complaint or a warrant because of that, and that person is processed into the court system. Certain serious offenses, they may go to the county jail, where they would be booked in there before they go before a judge to set bond. In that case, now we have the individual that we're dealing with, there's going to be evidence that's associated with that case. That evidence has to be stored. We have to inventory and log that in. That's going to be a separate number under our current system, okay? If we send it to the crime lab in DuPage for any type of analysis, if that'd be DNA testing or if it'd be any type of ballistics testing, that would generate a third number, okay? So in order to reduce this conglomeration of numbers, if we have a standardized system, we're only going to be using one number that's going to track the individual through the court system, through the clerk's office, any evidence or reports that would go through the state's attorney's office, the crime lab, through adult probation, and so on and so forth. So it simplifies the system. It makes it much simpler. It also makes it easier for us to obtain information from other police departments, because we would have read-only privileges on these RMS systems, okay? And to give you an example, if we make an arrest of somebody for DUI, for example, the evidence that would be collected in that case would be the squad car dashboard camera, which would have recorded the field sobriety tests and any conversations we would have had with the driver. Also the breathalyzer tests, okay? And when we would go to court and the state's attorney is now going to prosecute that case, they would ask for copies of our reports. They would ask for copies of the breathalyzer results. They would also ask copies of the video. That means we would have to manually pull the reports, make copies of them, as well as burn a copy of the video on a disc and transmit all this to them. In the future, once this is up and running, we won't have to do that. The state's attorney would have a case number. They'd be able to go into the RMS system. They would be able to recover a copy of the video, all of the evidence results, the police reports, and so on and so forth. So it makes for a much more streamlined, efficient system, okay? And that's what we talk about, better interface and integration for first responders and with the state records management system. It's just going to be, everything's going to be simplified, and people will communicate with each other. So it's a joint information project designed to share information from beginning to the end of the process, manage incidents more efficiently, more reliable suspect and location information. This becomes very important, especially in instances of domestic violence. Many times a suspect will be released from DuPage County Jail, and even though there's a notification system there, the law enforcement agency may not be notified. We may have to call out and actually ask, was so-and-so released, did they make bond? This way, we'll be notified immediately when that person is released, and even if the victim for some reason didn't receive notification, we can let that person know. Also, they'll be able to get better information, meaning victims, on the dispositions of cases once they have gone through the court system. We're going to get better reporting and analytic data. Most of the data that I give to you during an annual report at budget time, most of this is hand collected, or we tabulated ourselves at the police department on separate spreadsheets, because we don't have, our current RMS system does not allow us to go in there and just say how many accidents occurred at the intersection of Butterfield and Batavia. We have to manually track that type of data. And we're going to have more efficient use of funds, because this is going to be a shared system that's going to be basically a state-of-the-art. It would not be feasible for us to try and do this on our own from a standpoint of cost, not only for the hardware and the software, but the personnel maintained that would be necessary to operate it and also to maintain it on a day-in, day-out basis. Now, the first phase is everything that you see there in red will be the first ones that will go live. And that hopefully will begin if the contract, if they get the letters of intent, meaning ETSB, if they get the letters of intent necessary to participate in this. They will be the first ones to go live. A contract will hopefully be signed by the end of summer. They're looking at the end of August, beginning of September, and then the integration would begin in this. ETSB did competitive bidding. They did requests for proposals and quotations on the equipment, and those specs are listed in the backup material that I provided with you. Now, there was funding for this through the ETSB. And again, ETSB is Emergency Telephone and Safety Board. A legal opinion from the state's attorney was that those grant funds could be used for the CAD portion of this, but not for the RMS. They, they found that that did not meet the, what do I want to say, the statute or the charter of the ETSB. So anything that would have to do with the telephone PSAP thing, the dispatching, the CAD dispatching material, that would be covered through the grant, and that is being funded through the grant. However, the cost for the records management system, excuse me, will be split amongst the participating agencies in this. Hopefully, within the next year to 18 months, all these other legacy agencies that you see, which would be jail, and when we talk about AFIS, it's automated fingerprint identification system, booking information, which is photographs, fingerprints, data sheets, last known addresses, physical descriptions, et cetera, and mugshots, again, are the pictures. Prosecution, state's attorney's office, the courts would be for the disposition, probation, corrections, again, would be for AFIS for people that are incarcerated and for DNA information. If you're a convicted felon in the state of Illinois, you're required to submit to giving a DNA sample, which goes into the national database. Parole, fusion center, regional databases, national databases, and emergency management. So those are the ones that would be up on board hopefully a year to 18 months after we get this rolling at the end of the summertime. It's a model project for the Illinois Criminal Justice Authority. It makes all law enforcement agencies ready for transition from IUCR, which is a Uniform Crime Report, to National Incident-Based Reporting System. Excuse me, there's grant funding, state and federal, available to offset the cost for this project management. That was done with the ETSB for the CAD portion. Part of the overall consolidation goals for 911 and system integration should reduce clerical time for first responders, clerks, and jailers. The letter of intent that we're asking the council to consider for participation tonight, participant monetary share over the life of the contract. It's an agreement to standardize the incident codes and tables. Those are things that we use right now in how we dispose of a call on the street, whether it be a traffic stop or a domestic incident or a theft report or a burglary report or what have you, so that it would be standardized throughout the county, which is going to give us better metrics at the end of the day. It'll finalize the contract based on the number of participants. That'll be updated to the county board and the ETSB board. They'll bid and install the new network to replace the current one. The implementation in the online project for the fourth quarter of 2018 is depending upon when the contract is signed, and phase 2 will be the remaining DuPage County Justice Information Integration, or all those other legacy agencies that I had told you about, courts, probation, and so on. So the participating agencies have received the following documents in an email to the mayor, president, manager, and the chiefs. It's a cover memo from State's Attorney Berlin and Chairman Grasso, a draft letter of intent with a resolution, including in the attachments, the steering committee work group structure, the DuPage customer pricing, the agency cost projection summary, the law enforcement RMS staffing overview, the additional cost summary, and a GIS workflow. ETSB asked that a response of participants indicated be submitted by June 25th. To date, and this was as of last week, 13 responses have been returned for 29% of the total cost of RMS. Now, one of the things to note in the letter of intent, there is a kick-out clause that we would be notified in the event that our costs would be 10% more than was quoted here. These have been very conservative estimations, and they will probably be lower because Lombard, for instance, is going to be going on board with about 90 users. If you get an agency that decided not to participate and they have 15 or 20 participants, it isn't going to impact the cost that much. If Naperville decided that they weren't going to participate, there would be a significant impact on the cost of the agency. But there is that kick-out clause that if our costs that were projected to us, given to us, would exceed 10% or more, we would be able to withdraw our letter of intent from participating in this project. Now, if we look at this, this is just as what pertains to Warrenville. I gave you a complete listing of all the other communities, but I wanted to go by this, okay? At the very top, you're going to see for the fiscal years 16, 17, and so on through 23, okay? Our total projected cost would be, as I had indicated, $244,079.42. For FY16, our RMS, which has passed, and one of the things to note, this is the county's fiscal year, which goes December 1 to November 30, okay? Right now, the county is in FY16. We're in FY17, okay? So what they're saying is for our next year, our projections would be $5,100 in 4 cents, $5,115.04, slightly lower than our $5,400, $5,500 annual fee. The reason being is they're starting to drop the maintenance on that, okay? So the maintenance costs are going to be lower because they're going to be phasing that cost out. If you look at FY17, which would be our FY18, our cost would be $1,867. The reason being is that they have one person that is an employee of the county that works for RMS maintaining that system, okay? That person is that job is going to be eliminated under that RMS system, which would represent the cost savings on why it dropped that much, okay? The next year, FY18, which would be our 19, is going to be 2 phases. If you see, there's 2, FY18, 2. One would be our share of the costs for the employees that they're going to be hiring that year. The second one is the capital costs, and this is where the costs start to jump, where it's $41,381.77. Excuse me, I had that mixed up. The $2,100 is going to be our fee for the RMS. The $41,000 will be our share of them adding 4 new employees, okay? And they're going to need 4 people in order to manage this on a day-in, day-out basis. FY19, which would be 20, is when everything would be up and rolling. That would be $26,000. That'll be our fee that year. For 20, 21, 22, and 23, you're going to see where our costs will remain about the same, okay? For agency-specific interfaces, what that means is the amount of interfaces that we would need through fiber optic connection at the police department, all the work terminals, all the squad car terminals, up at the records section and what have you. They bid it on the high side. It'll probably be lower than that, okay? Our cost for the fiber optic network, $38,000. Those are one-time fees. This is based on 37 users. We're going to have to update a little bit. It's probably going to be about 46 users by the time we're done with the part-time police officers, the records assistants, the service officers, and what have you. Okay? So we're going to have about 46 users. We're 1.83% of the total use of everybody that's going to be participating in this project, okay? And the total equipment replacement contribution would be $54,814.81. That is all part of these figures that's going to be going to that for our share of the equipment replacement, okay? Now, after that, then it should taper off, and we should be right around that $5,000 to $6,000 a year again going forward. But it's going to be these fees initially for again, about that $3 million project. So hopefully that brings some clarity to it. This is a lot of information given to us on a short time frame, asking us to get this back to them with this letter of intent. So we tried to do the best we could with going to meetings last week to get the information provided to us. And if you do have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer those for you.
Alderman Davalos?
Thank you. Thank you. I got a lot more out of this presentation. I did read everything, but this was much clearer. So thank you very much for this. A question on those that don't participate. Is their data still incorporated into the overall? So if somebody has a DUI in Winfield or something and Winfield didn't sign up, that data is still available in the overall picture of things? Yes or no?
No. What would happen would be is that they could stay with the current RMS system until it folds, which will be about 3 years before those computers are completely full and it's pulled offline. Just as about the time everybody's going to be kicking off on this, or they could go back to a paper and pencil system. Their third alternative is that they could try and buy in at that time, okay? But they can't project what the cost would be.
But is there information available to other municipalities that did sign up? It's not like, I mean, it'll still be going through, it'll be logged in somewhere in the county, I suppose.
yeah, it
It'll be
would.
available on this new system, even though they're not a participant.
No, it would not be on this new system.
Okay,
We would have to obtain information from non-participating agencies the way we do now,
okay.
which would basically be a request for copies of reports and
Yeah.
other items.
Do you have a sense, especially of the DUCOM members, that most of them are going to be signing up? I mean, it seems,
I don't
reasonable,
see
but-
anybody that's not going
Okay.
to be. I think the reason they only received 13 responses is because these had to be brought through
Sure.
before governing bodies to get approval before they could be committed.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
Alderman Ashour?
Did I hear you say that Lombard will have about 90 users?
Correct.
So it's going to change these numbers.
That's correct. It should drop it more. Right.
Yeah, they're going to be closer to the Elmhurst number than they are to what they are now.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Alderman Widener?
Yeah, thanks for all the information. I just wonder, have you been able to surmise what the staff impacts would be for your group?
I think it's going to be helpful to us right now because, again, when we have to get this information either for other police departments or for the state's attorney's office, that requires an individual manually doing this, either obtaining copies of reports or evidence or what have you, the digital information and sending that to them. Whereas now, they'll be able to go in and see the information. And again, for all other agencies, it'll be read-only. Warrenville will be the only one that'll have override authorities on issues that we deal with here.
How will your group get up to speed on this? Will there be additional training offered? and so
Absolutely, yeah.
forth?
There's going to be an ongoing training process with this. It's going to be provided as the phases kick off and get underway.
Do you have any idea how long the training program will be in order to
Most
feel
of this shouldn't
comfortable?
be too terribly difficult. I don't think it's going to be a big stretch for them to get up and running. If anything, it's going to simplify it more because my understanding is that the agency that got the bid on this, which is called Intergraph, is a much more user-friendly format than what we're using right now.
So this will actually work out to be a time-saving device and probably reduce staff hours as they learn the program, so we won't be anticipating extra personnel or anything like that to be able to be included as part of this.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Goodman?
Thanks so much. One of the things that went, this is really loud. One of the things that went by pretty fast on that chart of all the different things that were going to be added eventually, one of them was a fusion center, and that just sort of made me wonder, what is a fusion center?
I'm not 100% sure. I think that may have to do with Fermilab, but I'm not 100% sure, and I think the only reason that that may be online is for anything that would be with security breaches, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, that doesn't make sense. They don't deal with fusion at Fermilab. But does sound sort of physicsy. Okay, I don't know.
I can find out 100% for you and give you an answer.
I mean, it might be like our nuclear power reactors nearby, or I don't know. Yeah, we don't have that many
None that we
near
know,
here.
none that I know of in DuPage County, right?
Yeah, not in the county, but outside. I don't know. Okay, that's strange. I had a little trouble looking through this first memo from the deputy chief with all the various costs, getting it to add up right. If I add up all the things he says, the $244,000 is broken down in the following bullet points, and if I add them all up, it comes to about $186,000. You give me a list of numbers, I'm going to add them up, and then if I add the $54,000, it's still about $3,000 short. So I know some of these numbers are just projections and they're estimated and stuff, but when the math doesn't quite add up, that always makes me think somebody needs to double check something.
Mm-hmm.
So
I believe that the $244,000 projection for our cost also has to do with what they're looking for is, on the second page of his memo, is to have a pool of $3 million set aside at the end of the contract to be self-sustaining to upgrade equipment and software as it goes on in the future.
right, when I added that $54,000, it came out about $3,000 short.
Yeah, I believe that's what it's for, is that if you take the items that you tallied up and then you add on that $54,000, that's going to put you right in the ballpark for the $244,000 to be your share. And that $54,000, again, is going to be going towards that pool of a projected approximately $3 million from all of the users that you will be using to going forward for equipment and software upgrades.
Okay, and that is different than the capital costs for the new RMS system? Because the $41,000, I believe, you switched what you said and then you switched
Right.
it back again, and you said that you think the $41,000 is our share of the salaries of the new employees. But when I look at the salaries of the new employees, that's only $400,000 a year, so I don't think our part can possibly be $40,000.
No, if you look at Deputy Chief Jacobson's memo and in his bullet points, I believe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth one, $41,381.77 would be split into two payments, the first being in 2017 and the second half in 2018 for the start of the capital costs for the new net RMS system. That's going to be payment for the equipment for the capital costs. Part of that, though, I think that was factored into those capital costs were the salaries of those employees.
Okay, but that's fine, that makes sense, but then isn't that repetitive of the equipment replacement contribution? It's again sort of paying for the capital of the equipment and then paying for it again?
My understanding is that you buy the equipment initially in your capital outlay, and then the $54,000 is the replacement contribution that is going to be set aside at the end for equipment that's going to either have to be upgraded or replaced.
Okay, so we're not really paying for 8 years here. We're paying for, maybe 16 or, that same equipment, but over a longer period. Not all of it because there'll still be ongoing personnel and so on. But
Yes, ma'am,
but
but what,
even though we're making payments here over 8 years, we're paying some things ahead of time.
that's correct, but the information I was given was those monies would be due within that time frame that I presented to you, and that's why I wanted to share with the council.
Obviously, I'm just trying to get my head around what these
Yes.
numbers really mean.
No, you're spot on.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Alderman Hoffman?
What's the projected life of the system?
I think that they were looking at something in the area of about 20 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Wilson?
Along with the cost factors is on the second page where they say they have two other costs built in to the projected costs, and that's $19,643 for agency-specific interfaces. I don't see where those numbers there are added in to this $244,000 that it's expected to. in addition to that 244,000.
No, what they did for the interface costs, and Christina, could you bring up that one loan slide? I did it right there. You had right here for the specific interface and the fiber network cost. Those were very high estimates, and if you notice when you went down that chart, they were just about the same for every agency, okay? And what they did with that is they estimated high. And the reason being is, number one, the specific interfaces, now they talk about our LiveScan and Beast. LiveScan is how we transmit our fingerprints, okay, to the state and the FBI. The Beast is our evidence, it's our evidence tracking and cataloging unit that we have right now. We don't know exactly how many of these types of interfaces are going to be had by the different agencies that are participating throughout the county. If we had something where agencies start going to body cameras or the squad car cameras, it's going to be another interface that we're going to have. For our rooms that we use to record interviews, that's going to be another interface that we're going to have. For our equipment that we have, our surveillance cameras within the police department, that's going to be another interface, okay? So they went very high, but we still may fall below that $19,000, okay? And the $38,000 for the fiber optic network is going to be for the bidder that they got at that time, okay? And it was a high bid, and you may choose not to want to go with fiber optic, okay? I think we probably would, but again, that was what we were told that was going to be on the high side, just to make sure that there were no surprises coming down the road.
Okay, one other question, and that just is a little comment here that indicates that the GIS workflow in addressing ordinances, it says, does our GIS work with them? It says that they will require standardization.
They're going to be asking that we provide them, obviously, with certain things for the CAD that would come through our GIS. Addresses, locations of businesses, and so on and so forth, so that when people call with the enhanced 911, that information pops up.
Okay, because didn't we just spend some money for a GIS system or upgrade? Was that for the whole system or for community development? Mr. Administrator?
Yes, we did. That is going on right now. They're creating a database, and they have a whole process of upgrading our GIS mapping and information databases.
So that we would expect that then to be standardized and meet the requirements of this particular program.
As they'd be related, they would have to be, we do work with the county to get our base data information about our geographic, I'm going to use the wrong terms very quickly here because I'm about an inch deep in this information, and we have others that handle it. But that should all be compatible and be able to be used. I think what you're asking is, do we have to change our whole system now that we have to work with this? The answer would be no. That
That's
should
what
all
I-
be able to work together.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? I need a motion. Alderman Widener?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the city council pass a resolution authorizing the letter of intent to participate in the RMS countywide system.
Second.
A motion by Alderman Widener, a second by Alderman Wilson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Number 2, repossession of vehicle ordinance. Chief Toronto.
Thank you, Chairman. Currently, the city of Warrenville does not have an ordinance that would regulate repossession agencies in the event a vehicle or some type of piece of equipment was repossessed from a purchaser who defaulted on payments. This can result in issues because if that person were to get up in the morning and not find their vehicle there, they would report it to the police and think that their vehicle was stolen, because there is no mandate that these agencies comply with notifying us. What the staff is asking in this proposal is a draft ordinance is provided, which would be an amendment to our current Chapter 4 ordinance. And all it does is it indicates that repossession companies would be required to notify the Warrenville Police Department if they're going to come in and repossess any type of equipment prior to going out there. There's a $100 penalty in the event that they fail to do that. This is also a safety mechanism for the repossession companies, because if they're going to go out there, many times people may not know if this is in fact a valid repossession or just somebody trying to steal their property. So this is the request of the staff is to consider recommending this to the council.
Thank you. Questions? Alderman Ashour.
Is this common in many communities?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Alderman Widener.
Yeah, I think this is a really good idea to include in our ordinance to provide safety, as you mentioned, to the repo company personnel, and as well as having the police get a heads up. I'm sure some of these repossession situations can quickly escalate and get out of hand, so it's probably great for the police officers to know what's going on ahead of time with something with this regard. So with that, I make a motion to recommend the City Council approve an ordinance amending Title 4 of the City Code to include a new Chapter 8 entitled Repossession of Vehicles.
Second.
A motion by Alderman Widener and a second by Alderman Davalos. Any more questions? Alderman Ashour?
Just one question. Is there anybody that's exempt from this?
I'm not sure.
I mean, is there anybody that repossesses stuff that is exempt, would be exempt from this ordinance? Or is it blanket, all the banks, anybody that would be in a position to repossess something, everybody has to?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Wilson?
My only question, when it says vehicles, are we talking about just automobiles or motorhomes or?
We're talking about
Boats
motorhomes,
or-
motor-driven cycles. We're talking about boats, RVs, what have you. So it runs the gamut.
It's expensive. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Widener?
I just have one last question. What do you have, a complete list of all the repossession companies out there, and you notify them of the new ordinance, or how do they become aware that, they could be fined for lack of notice or something?
Well, what we'll do is we'll advertise this on our website, and then there's a few major agencies that most of your financial institutions work with, and we'll be notifying them via letter.
Okay, great, thanks.
You're welcome.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Number 3, consideration of a memorandum of understanding between the Community Unit School District 200 and the Warrenville Police Department. Chief Toronto.
Thank you, Chairman. We received a request from Community School District 200 indicating that we enter into a memorandum of understanding with them regarding the way police interact with school administrators and students on school property during school hours in the course of police investigations. To be quite honest with you, these are practices that we already adhere to at the Warrenville Police Department, and it really doesn't affect us too much because we don't have a high school within the community, and that would be a majority of where these contacts may take place. But for the most part, if we have any issues involving junior high students, we deal with the people and the kids and their parents after school hours at their homes. However, again, at the request of the school district, they asked for this formal memorandum of understanding. They currently have one with Wheaton, West Chicago, Winfield, and I believe part of Naperville. I did want to present this. I think it's a good idea to have it memorialized and to present it to the council.
Questions? Alderman Goodman?
I had one main question when looking through the agreement. I understand what you're saying about how interactions on school grounds and in a school setting should be governed by this, but some of the language is actually pretty broad. On page 2 it says, under interviews and interrogations, officers will, unless exigent or emergency circumstances exist, contact an appropriate school official before any contact is made with a student for interview regarding criminal activity. And that doesn't sound like it's limited to just things on school grounds. So maybe we could have the city attorney take a look at that, or is that really the intention?
No, this does have to do with what their actions are. Obviously, the school would have no jurisdiction over the police if it's not on their property. But what this is saying is outside, it says officers may intercede in the first page, incidents that may result in conflicting resolutions where consultation with appropriate Warrenville Police Department supervisory personnel and school staff personnel may be required. However, the majority of this is going to take place, I should say all of it, where they would have standing would be within the school during school hours or on school property. Now, obviously, if there was something, God forbid you have an active shooting situation or something like that at a school, and we get information that a student has knowledge or is responsible for it, are we going to, talk to that person? Yeah, absolutely we will. And that kind of covers it. It says unless there's exigent or emergency circumstances. Basically, in these types of agreements, it's that the school acts in the best interest of the child, that they're going to want to be present if you do any type of interviewing, or they're going to have a parent there. They're going to make sure that the child knows their rights, and if they don't want to participate in the interview, that's going to be adhered to. As I said, this isn't something that we don't already practice. If we have something involving a young person, we deal with them, outside of school hours at their residence with their parents.
Right. I mean, it seems like a parent should be the first contact, not a school official.
Well, if they're in school, the school official would be acting in local parenti. They would be in place of the parent.
Right. It just doesn't say that in this part. It says that in some of the other parts of the document, that, it's the policy of that on school property such and such and such and such. But for this one, it just didn't say that. So I was just wondering if this was phrased badly, or if we could have the city attorney look at that particular piece, because it seems too broad.
If you want that done, I don't have an objection with it.
I mean, has the city attorney already reviewed this?
No, it was signed by the other communities, and when I did read it, again, it said under responsibilities on the first page, active in police action involving students during school hours, including the investigation of criminal activity complaints that take place on school grounds. Just from my experience, there's no way that District 200 would have any type of authority or control over what we did outside of school property during school hours.
Maybe the city administrator would be able to tell me if the city attorney would normally look over something like that.
For a memorandum of understanding of this nature, not necessarily. We can certainly, if the committee wishes, we can certainly have the attorney look at it before the council, the upcoming council meeting. I don't think it's going to take a lot of time for him to do it. It'd be covered under the retainer, so we can get it to him and just have him get a short memo from him or opinion that states his thoughts on it. If there's any issues, then we can follow up with the school district.
Okay, I
Certainly.
mean, that sounds fine.
Alderman Wilson?
I just have one question here on E. It says there may be occasions when law enforcement officers from other jurisdictions, not District 200, would they be in contact with your department prior to doing that, or would you be involved in any way with an outside agency?
Absolutely. And to be really honest with you, the majority of this would take place, again, from my experience, would take place with students that would be in a high school setting.
Okay,
Not a junior high or primary school.
primary. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Widener?
Chief, could you speak to the additional levels of training that an officer might have when getting involved with a serious interrogation with a student in a school, and how that would occur?
Well, first of all, they have to be a juvenile officer, and a juvenile officer is a state-certified 40-hour course that a full-time police officer would attend. and it goes over the Juvenile Court Act versus the Criminal Court Act. Cook County, Illinois was where the Juvenile Court Act was incepted, and basically what it does is it acts in the best interests of the child. There's some different language used versus criminal courts, which deal with adults. We don't look at the terms like arrest. We look at detention. We don't look at prosecution. We look at adjudication. And it has to do with terminology and also with the parents' rights of the juvenile, where you're dealing with somebody that's a juvenile, and again, that would be somebody under the age of 17, okay? Under the age of 18, you're a minor, and under the age of 21, you have not yet reached your age of majority. But the parent can act instead of the juvenile at that point, which means that in the Juvenile Court Act specifically says that you're not to interrogate a juvenile in police custody unless they're either A, represented by an attorney, or B, they have a parent present, okay? The parent can either waive the right for the juvenile, or the juvenile can sit there and say, I don't want to answer any questions, or the parent can sit there and say, I don't want them to answer any questions. So basically, you're working with the child and the juvenile, but at the end of the day, the goal of the Juvenile Court Act and the juvenile justice system is to act in the best interests of the child versus merely gaining information in order to proceed with an indictment in a criminal case.
One last question. Can you tell me how many juvenile officers we have on the force?
We have 6 trained as
6.
juvenile.
And certainly one of them would be sent to any kind of serious or situation that may happen at either any of the schools in Warrenville.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
More questions? Any motion? This will be pending the attorney review. Alderman Widener?
Yes, pending the attorney's review, make a motion to recommend the City Council approve the memorandum of understanding between Community Unit School District 200 and the Warrenville Police Department.
A motion by Alderman Widener and a second by Alderman Wilson. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's see. We have nothing under miscellaneous and nothing under closed session, so we just need a motion to Alderman Goodman.
I move we adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just one real quick point I wanted to make. We started with the second year of neighborhood roll call, and all of the locations and the dates, weather permitting, have been posted on Facebook and the website, so please come out and join us. We'll also have the large sign out there that'll be indicating when it'll be in your neighborhood, so please join us for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.